Well, we are back with Bill Scott, and he has written a book called The Day Satan Called. And we were just talking about how you received this very strange phone call while you were working at the Christian radio station. And let's just kind of pick up the story from there.
Yeah, well, for 3 days we're talking on and off the phone, always a speaker phone, to Lacey. And you know, I got as many people as I could to pray with us because I knew there was power in prayer. I wasn't certain what to do on every encounter with her, but I did know that we needed prayer.
Now, let me ask the question. Was your radio station inside the church?
It was. It was inside a church,
okay.
A really large church. And one of the secretaries in the church said, I used to be involved in the occult years ago. She'd given her life to Christ, obviously. She said, could I come pray too? Oh, yeah. This would be great, please. And we were speaking to Lacey, and you'd hear this demon interrupt, saying, you can't get her. It's never going to happen. And she was telling a lot of her story. I didn't know what was true, what wasn't true. But I did know there was a battle going on. And so here we are praying, and Susan slips into the room. Now, of course, we've got Lacey on a speakerphone, and we're praying, we're talking. The phone goes dead. And I thought she probably hung up again, and she didn't. And all of a sudden, that unhuman voice says, Susan, where you been? We missed you. Now, nobody said anything about Susan coming in the room. I mean, at that point, all bets were off, all doubts were gone. I knew that we were dealing, you know, with demons with this girl. And we didn't know why it was happening, but I knew it was real. And I just knew that somehow we could take authority over this. And so we continue to reach out to her, and she finally calls and says, I hear you have a concert at your church. I said, well, yeah, we do. She said, I'd like to come. And I thought, well, this would be great, because we had gone out looking for her. We'd sent pastors, we'd sent staff, and could never find her. It was before even cell phones, so everybody had a chicken from a payphone. Remember those, right?
Right.
And so she says, I'm going to come. And a little bit later that evening, she calls, and she's up the road at the ice cream shop. I know where she is. So we send people as quick as we can. Still, nobody there. We cannot find her for anything. So she finally calls on an inside line. And I know it's our inside just extension, like here in this building, you know, it's not outside. And my heart stopped. I thought, she's in the church. And then she'd hang up, she'd call back. The receptionist called and said, who's calling you on the inside line? And I said, it's a Lacey girl. She goes, she's calling from all over the church. Now you got to understand, this was a mega church at the time. The sanctuary was a football field and a half wide. So it gives you the idea. So the campus of this church, you know, you could spend 10 minutes walking from point A to point B. And she's calling from all over the church at once. And I'm like, Lord, what is going on? And at that same time, witches start showing up at the radio station, along with other people for the concert, because people would come by for tours. But they would say, we're here for Lacey. We're here to kill Lacey. And I'm thinking, Lord, what do we do? And, you know, security would usher them out. And she called, Lacey did, and said, I'd like to meet you out back. We had this old retirement center that was undone. I don't know how many years it had been vacant. No lights, just the light off the main building. She says, I'll meet you there. And I'm thinking, oh no. You know, it's almost like you're watching a movie, and have you ever talked to the TV and said, don't do it, don't do it. You know what I mean?
That's what I was saying. Why are you doing this?
That's sort of what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, am I really doing this?
Don't go alone.
I was not a courageous man. I did want to see this kid rescued. And so I remember walking through the courtyard, and I put in the book, all that was missing was the cheesy music to go with a scary movie. And I get to near the porch, and I can see her standing on the porch, at least a figure or somebody. And I called out Lacey, and she ran across the porch, literally into a brick wall, and disappeared. Now, if you were telling me this story, I'd think you probably bumped your head last night. I'm serious. That's why I didn't tell it for so many years. I turned around and I ran like a schoolgirl back to the building. I wasn't certain what had happened. I don't know if it was actually her at any one point or if it was a spirit. I didn't know. I knew it wasn't right. And it just blew us away, and we weren't really sure what to do at that point in time. When I entered the building and shared the story, everybody, you know, they were just like, what do we do now? And I was like, I don't know.
I had a couple of questions, and one of my questions was, what was your pastor saying about all of this?
Yeah, you know, we had, I didn't talk to the senior.
I know it was a big,
yeah,
I know it was a big
church.
Congregation.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
I wasn't talking to the senior pastor, but I had our station manager who was one of the pastors, and he got involved. Thank the Lord, because I'm like, what do we do? I mean, it was evident we were over our head, and we had one lady, Roxanne, actually show up at the studio.
Right.
And we started talking and praying with her, and sparks were flying, and this guy knew what to do. He says,
Roxanne
I know what to do.
was demon possessed.
Yes,
right?
she was demon possessed. She said she was sent to kill Lacey, and but she wanted to hear about Jesus. Right. And so we started sharing, but the eyes were just, you could tell she wasn't the only one there. And this guy took the lead and really turned, I think, what could have been a bad evening into a good evening. Yeah, it was, I mean, I was behind him the whole way. I kept saying, I'm way behind you.
Right.
And, but it was amazing because, see, he knew his authority. And there was a battle,
Right.
and I think many times there can be, but he knew his authority. He was not going to be intimidated, unlike someone like me at the time. I didn't know, at that point, I didn't know what was real, what wasn't real. I needed somebody to really guide me.
God was trying to teach you all of that.
He was teaching me, yes.
He was.
He really was.
First-hand experience. And then at some point, you actually end up taking her into your home for a while, right?
Oh, yeah. I'll share that with you here in a minute. I'm telling you, you will have, wow. Just wow. That's all I can say.
Read the book.
The Day Satan Called. We will be back with more with author Bill Scott. We're going to take a break for some music, but stay tuned for this very, very powerful story. We do want to encourage you that if you need prayer for yourself or for anything that is on your heart, prayer partners are available. The number is there, 888-665-4483. Michelle Agustin and I, we are with Bill Scott, the author of The Day Satan Called.
That's right, and it was a very exciting book, Pastor Gary. I read it overnight. I shouldn't have read it overnight, but I did. But I just had a couple points that I wanted to make sure Bill made. Bill, can you talk to us a little bit about when you took Roxanne home? And you've been talking about Lacey, but can you tell them how Lacey was connected to Roxanne?
Yeah, I mean, you know, Roxanne had called us the morning after, and she knew where Lacey was because somebody at the station asked her, and then to find out, she goes, you know, Lacey's inside me. And so we brought her back, and that really began incredible warfare. And when we got done that time, she goes, I can't go back. The people that, you know, I'm trying to get away from, if they find out that I've been with you guys and here at the church, I'll be in trouble.
And Roxanne, this whole thing was a part of a witch's coven.
It was part of a witch's coven,
right.
And she's like, you know, they're not going to be happy with me.
Right.
And, you know, I'm a mercy giver. I help people, and sometimes that's not a good thing if you don't have boundaries. I was young, and I just said, well, you'll come home with us.
And your wife said?
Yeah, I don't think she said much for a couple of days, actually. It was not one of my brighter moments. Right. And, you know, I had a heart to really help. And I didn't know you don't bring this into your home. I just wanted to rescue this lady. I mean, we'd tried for days to help her. And so we did bring her home. And at one point, I found one of her books, and I opened it up and had names and addresses. And so I'm sitting there reading through them thinking, who are these people? Are they witches? Are they warlocks? Because we had had other people try to find Roxanne. They wanted her back.
Right.
And I just picked one name. I don't know what led me to it. And I called. I mean, my heart is just beating. And this guy answers the phone. And he asked who I was. And so I told him, I mean, I was scared because as far as I knew, this could be a warlock, part of a coven. And I told him I worked at a radio station at a church. He said, okay. And I said, why are you calling? I said, well, I'm calling about Roxanne. And he got real quiet. And he says, do you have her? Sort of. You know, I didn't know how much information to really give. And he goes, well, I'm Pastor so-and-so of the First Baptist Church in someplace in Indiana. And I just stopped. I thought, a Christian in her book, why? He said she had stayed with us. He says, I have done this for 25 years, deliverance ministry. He says, do you have any clue what you're dealing with? And I was like, no, sir. Really, I don't. I've never seen anything like this. I don't know what I'm involved in. We need help. He goes, yeah, you really, this is not a light case. He said, in 25 years, I've never seen anything like this. And I'm thinking, great, my first time out. It's a home run, right? And it really did put fear into me, because I always had great respect for what we were dealing with. I didn't take it lightly. I mean, I remember the sons of Sceva in the Bible that tried to cast out demons, and they weren't doing so in Jesus' name, and they got beat up pretty bad. So I always had great respect dealing with this demonic realm. Even though I didn't quite know how to handle it, I knew, I was like, Lord, just cover me with your blood. Well, the pastor said, have you talked with a spirit by the name of Abaddon? And I said, well, I don't know. And he goes, no, you would know. He said, that really is the strong man in this particular person. And he said, we were praying one night, and he said, our house began to shake, literally shake like an earthquake. And he says, this is really a strong demon. He said, we were praying in our board meeting in the church for this gal. She had already gone back home. And he said, the church began to shake, and we heard this voice, why do you torment me so? He said, literally, we got on our hands and faces before God asking for protection. I'm speechless at this point. You know, and I looked in Revelation where Abaddon simply means destruction. And as I began to go through that book and call a few different people, you saw destruction in lives of churches as well as individual lives. It was just, you know, so I don't know that this demon was literally Abaddon, but it definitely had, in a weird way, the mission or ministry that Abaddon had, and caused a lot of destruction. And there was at one point, I came face to face with him. Right. And it was a breathtaking experience.
So what did Roxanne say her purpose was?
Her purpose was, you know, she never said it, but it was very obvious. It was destruction. You know, Satan was using her to cause havoc in people's lives, whether they were ministry or Christian couples or churches. She was used to cause just unbelievable havoc in people's lives.
And so she was a plant that really wanted to be set free, but she was so demonized that she couldn't be set free.
Yeah, I believe that to be true, because I always believed that she was a beautiful person. But she was being used as nothing more than really a pawn by Satan. Yeah.
And how long of a period of time was she actually living with you in your home?
Yeah, off and on twice, because we put her into a mission kind of ministry program, 18 months. That was a long time, 18 months. And I'll never forget, we just would pray, Lord, give us the answer. Give us the answer as to why this is going on, and how do we make it stop, and how do we help her.
Amen. Well, we're going to be back with more about this exciting book, The Day Satan Called. Remember, the prayer line is available, 888-665-4483. We're going to go back to Renee Basil for some more anointed music, and then we'll be right back with the continuation of this powerful testimony.